Welcome to the Happy Recruiting Show with Jody Brandstetter. Thank you to our sponsor, Talent Acquisition Evolution, a community for recruiting professionals to connect, learn, and work together. Today's show, we have a conversation about assumptions we make about people during the hiring process, specifically around age, with Andrea Bjorkman, CEO, co-founder of Knackstor Global. All right, Andrea, thank you so much for being a part of the Happy Recruiting Show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited about it.
First, I want you to tell everybody who you are and just a little bit about your background.
Okay, I have a long background. My name is Andrea Bjorkman, and I have 30 plus years of experience in human resources, marketing, advertising, sales, operations, and consulting. And I started out from college, got my finance and economics degree, and went into banking. And then I did media sales for a while, both TV and outdoor. And then moved into financial services and insurance with State Farm. And then almost 3 years ago, May of this year, I took a package that I could literally not refuse to leave State Farm. So since, then I took about 6 months off to spend time with family and friends and doing a lot of personal stuff that I hadn't done in 30 plus years, right? And then I went into the job market, and it wasn't pretty. Now, some of that was, on me. I had not had an updated resume in 17 years. We did not need that at State Farm. We had an internal type document that was used for promotions and that kind of thing. I was not active on LinkedIn, and that one is definitely on me. And then, so I had a lot to learn, and it wasn't fun until, and you can certainly relate to this, until I decided to go down the entrepreneurship and startup route. And that's been really fun, really fun.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited and nervous at the same time to hear about your experience, because I think that recruiters need to know the other side and to recognize what maybe we're doing wrong. And but at the same time, I think there's a lot that you can provide as far as guidance, tips, things like that. Now, I know that we have talked about Cincinnati Chili, but before we get into that, first tell me, what part of the country are you in?
I'm in Bloomington, Illinois, not Indiana. I always have to say that to my Indiana and close to Indiana friends, right? They automatically go there. So that's central Illinois, about two and a half hours south of Chicago and 2.5 hours north of St. Louis. So we're definitely central, heart of Illinois, farm country.
And so I believe you have a love of baseball, which has gotten you to come to Cincinnati a few times, and you have tried Cincinnati Chili before.
Definitely, yes.
What was your first experience like? Was it what you expected, or tell me a little bit about what you think about Cincinnati Chili?
Yeah, it was what I expected because I read about it, and I lived in Dayton for a short time, so close to Cincinnati. The pasta thing was not, and I know a lot of folks from your area, Indiana, also, they grew up having pasta in their chili. That was not my deal. And I lived all over the country and overseas. I'm an Air Force brat from way back. And so our thing, especially in Texas, was Fritos at the bottom of your bowl first, not pasta. So the pasta thing was great, but then the cheese and the onions, you can't go wrong with that. So like it a lot. And I loved the hot dogs at the ballpark, at your ballpark, with the chili on the top and the cheese and onions. Don't need the pasta, but delicious. Yes, love it.
Oh, Bloomington, are you guys known for any certain cuisine? Or if I came to Bloomington, are there certain restaurants I should be looking at?
Definitely. So beer nuts, have you heard of beer nuts?
Yes, but I don't know if I could tell you what they are.
They're just all different kinds of nuts. They've been here since like the 40s. And actually, I live downtown Bloomington, and I could walk there right now and go get some nuts of all kinds. And so they're very well known because of the sweet corn, right? Again, the farms, sweet corn is a big deal. We have a sweet corn festival. All the farms. So we have a lot of farm to fork restaurants. Epiphany Farms and Anjou above, which are 2 blocks this way from me, have their own farm, and they do amazing things with vegetables and fruits and free range chickens and hogs and all sorts of wonderful stuff. And all the CSAs you can get, whether they're produce or breads or eggs or meats. And then just buying local is really big.
I can always talk about food nonstop. That's probably why I started this podcast with Cincinnati Chili. But we're here to talk more about HR and talent acquisition. So before we go into your career journey that you went through after you left your last position, I want to first, kind of pick your brain as an HR leader. What are maybe a couple tips that a talent leader should be doing or looking at today, especially with everything that we've been going through in the past couple of years?
Yeah, those are always good questions. And the ones that I always go back to are be the brand of the company, right? And if you don't have a brand, and I ran into some folks like that, they were trying to be the brand, but their company didn't look at that, right? And so then they took on, and we still have some conversations I still have conversations with a couple of these folks. They took on the role of trying to build the brand. Now these are for, smaller companies, startups, that kind of thing, but that is so important. The recruiters that I still am in contact with and that I felt very good about, and they made the job process easier, were the ones that understood that. And they're the best ambassadors, right, for your company. The other one that I really stressed with my talent acquisition folks when I was at State Farm was get to know your hiring managers and make them your partners. And that means you have to know their business. And I've been on both sides. I've been on the business side and the HR side, so I understand it. But know their business beyond just the people. Know what their strategic plan is, know what their goals are, know how they make money. In order to do that, you'll be seen as a more valuable partner, and you're going to help them in a way. We all know, and again, being on both sides, I can say this, hiring managers don't always know who they need to hire. You can help them when you clearly understand their business. You can be, you are in my mind, I told my folks all the time, you all are indispensable. Don't forget it.
So I have a follow-up question on the branding side. I was just on a podcast and I was talking about branding, and the individual I was talking to was like, but branding's just the ping pong table, or, the beer on Tuesday nights. And I said no, but what is, when you say be the brand, can you just kind of elaborate a little bit more on that?
Sure. It's about, for the companies that really understand what their brand and their culture is about, they've identified their values. And I'll give one. So one that is integrity. Okay. So when I would have, and I had this happen too many times, when I would be ghosted by a recruiter, by a company who said integrity was one of their values, that's a problem. I wanted nothing to do with that company. Also, there was another situation where the recruiter was fantastic. I got through multiple interview rounds, talked with the CEO. One of their values was all about the customer. I intentionally, and the employee, customers and employees come first. So I intentionally asked him, how do you rank employees, customers, and yourself? And he said, well, myself, of course. I chose not to work there. And he was just being honest.
I was going to say, I bet one of their values was honesty.
And that poor recruiter, and she couldn't warn me, right? She couldn't badmouth, but she certainly understood when I said, no, thank you.
Those are really good examples, because it's amazing how people have taken brand to be work environment.
Right.
When I think of brand, it's literally, like you said, it's the values, it's the mission, it's the vision, It's where the company is going. So if you can put that into your career site, into your messaging, into your conversations with your candidates, that to me is branding, not a ping pong table.
Now, if your brand, part of your values is fun, well, then you got to have a ping pong table, right? But
absolutely.
And if that's your only value, then I'm concerned about you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that with having these multi-generations of folks being in the workplace, companies have been trying to target maybe the younger generations with having some of these flexibility, ping pong tables, however they're trying to do it. But that's not a brand focus. It's more of a trying to attract candidates, in my opinion.
Yep.
So when we talked the first time, and we had an honest conversation about ageism and how it's still here, it's still happening, and you faced it during your career search. So I feel like this could be a controversial conversation for some people, but I think we need to have the honest conversation about there's ageism. What does it look like? How can we fix it? And what are some key things that we can help companies hopefully not show ageism and to really see everyone for the potential that they have?
Yeah, good questions. And it shouldn't be controversial. It's real. And unfortunately, because of the pandemic, it's happening earlier to people like in their 40s, and it happens more often to women. And that's only gotten worse, right? Your comment about when we talked about the ping pong tables and all of they're trying to attract younger people and flexibility. I mean, I'm not a huge ping pong player, but serve me beer, give me flexibility. Quit trying to tell me that only young people like those kind of things. These are assumptions that are made that are not real. They're not real at all. So, I had to hide my age, and I left off valuable experience off of my resume and my LinkedIn profile, which then made me less of an ideal candidate. So then you're not getting, companies aren't getting the talent they need because they're thinking, well, you're old, and I had for a company in Indiana, love them a lot. It was for their SVP of HR and the COO I would have been reporting to, who was probably my age. No, he was a couple of years older because he told me, and he said, I'm going to probably get in trouble when I say this, but at your age, why are you looking for a job? And I said, because I want to continue to work. I want to continue to add value. I want to continue to learn. Quit making assumptions about me. And he took it very well. And yes, his HR person that I was going to replace kicked him, and it was fine. But it's just like, even at his age, he made assumptions that he shouldn't have. So the things that we need to move from looking at, and this is a stereotype, right? Companies look at folks by age and generation. They need to be looking at the individual, because the individual's behaviors, attitudes, and values have nothing to do with their age. Again, I'll play ping pong. I'll drink beer on Fridays. You bet. I want to do that. If I could have had the flexibility when I was raising my 4 daughters that is now offered these days, it would have been fantastic. I still want it now. So there is a woman, her name is, I'm going to read it right here, Gina Pell. So she has come up with a concept called Perennials, and I absolutely love this. So she captures the increasing importance of moving beyond broad demographic categories to understand people on a more meaningful level. And they're called Perennials. I love the name because I love flowers. And then she uses the word Perennials describes an ever-blooming, perfect, group of people of all ages, stripes, and types who transcend stereotypes and make connections with each other and the world around them. These are people of all ages who continue to push up against their growing edge, always relevant and not defined by their generation. That's beautiful. Those are the people I want to work with, right? That's the company I want to work for. How hard is that?
it is amazing how, and let's be honest about this, throughout our lives, we have been told there's specific steps that we're supposed to do and that we have to meet those steps. So growing up, I was told I had to go to college, I had to get married, and I had to have children, and I had to have a career. Like those were the four things that I was brought up telling me what to do. There was no like discover or be yourself or have that individual perspective. No. It was very much, and I think for a very long time that equated to success. I think as our culture, success equaled those four things, and sometimes just three of those things. But we've never actually in the work environment, we still kind of have those assumptions that it's like this step. So when you get to a certain age, you retire. When you when you're, there was always that assumption after having a baby, will you be a stay-at-home mom or will you go back to work? And so we've always kind of either made assumptions, like you said, and made an ass out of you and me, which I think we're doing a lot in the world. But we never just look at the person and say, what do you want to do? How do you want to live? I love the Perennial. I love the Blossom, because we're talking about having multiple careers in our lives. Right. You're not going to stay in one area of expertise. Now that we have that ability to continue to learn and to continue to grow and go into other areas. Yes. So that was very cool. So I'll make sure I get that information. So I put it in the notes of this. Okay. So people can learn a little bit more about that person and that philosophy.
It's really interesting to me. Yes. And it's just so real. And how much fun is it for a recruiter to be able to ask those questions that you brought up, right? What do you want to do? What would make you happy? I mean, that's so much better than tell me about your last experience and, and then you match that person to the right role.
Absolutely. Yeah. If they talk about reskilling and retraining, yes. And if you know what someone wants to be down their path of their lives, you can start connecting those dots after they join your organization in the role that fits them today. Right. And that is that continuing to keep employees engaged, satisfied, and wanting to continue to work with your organization. Yes. I think one of the big pieces of ageism is that the assumption that you will only want to work a couple years and then retire. Well, does anyone work more than a couple years before they potentially go to another job? Like what? To me, I think that could be anyone, right? Who could leave in a couple years. Right. So again, that assumption of someone who's at a certain age is going to leave because of retirement is similar to what millennials had gone through and said, well, they're only going to stay a year if we don't keep them satisfied. Well, who wants to stay at a job that doesn't keep them satisfied? So again, I think there's a lot, the whole putting people in generations is not really working when we all have the same kind of goals in life.
Right, exactly. No, it sounds so simple, right?
So tell me a few ways that you saw ageism while in your career search. So what were some of them that you would say were obvious, and the ones that were not so obvious, so that our viewers can understand the different ways that we may actually be showing bias that we don't know about?
Sure. Well, the obvious, I just told the guy, why at your age do you want to keep working? And really, I didn't mind that question because I could share, right? I don't know that it changed his mind at all, but that was incredibly obvious. I believe I was ghosted more often because of my age. Now, I will tell you, some of the big recruiting firms, They wanted to know my entire history because they could then make me a better candidate for their roles. So that was different. I went, really? I get to talk about this? But they knew how to spin it. And they also knew that the roles they were hiring for needed that experience. So there was that. There were just, funky questions that made no sense whatsoever, trying to get me to tell, they were trying to get me to tell how old I was. But like on ATS, a lot of companies, ATS, they require you to put your birth date in, your college graduation date. That's wrong, right? That's how they're doing it. Mm-hmm. I know I had one company and, it was great. They flew me out for an interview, and for the ticket, they needed my birth date, and they were very obvious. They said, we will not share this with anybody else. So it was like their travel department. I didn't trust that. And I also know that some people said, there's all kinds of background investigation that goes on. And I had a recruiter say, hey, I found out how old you are and you're too old. Okay. And I said, that's illegal, right? They said, yes.
It is. I will agree that as a recruiter, I have the capability of finding a lot of information out about a person. Mm-hmm. It's the ethical piece that it sounds like was absolutely lacking.
Right.
And so it sounds like there was a lot of obvious ageism.
Yes.
But then some of the system work could also trigger that as well.
Yeah. And please let me make this point very clear. I don't necessarily blame the recruiters. I believe that's the way they were trained. That's what their company wants them to do. Either they've been obvious about it, or there's some underlying feeling. So I don't blame the recruiters. It's the system that's set up.
There are so many levels of how this could happen. It could be training, it could be expectations of the company. So yeah, I would agree. There are multiple players in the game that are causing this to happen. Now, one thing I have seen that hiring managers or even recruiters get concerned about is pay. That if they reach out to you as someone who has all this wonderful experience, that you're going to expect more money. So did you see anything like that within your interviewing processes?
Yeah. And that was assumptions again. Mm-hmm. I didn't need to make what I made at State Farm. That wasn't, I was past that as far as my career goes. It was, and I said this over and over again, I'm looking for an opportunity where I can continue to learn, where I can use my experience, where I can, add value and have an impact. That doesn't mean that salary is never my number one. And that didn't seem to make a difference.
It's very interesting because I've had conversations with candidates who had a lot of experience, and I would ask, what they were looking for. Sure. And then I would tell them the range that the company was looking for. And as long as they met that range, they would move forward in the process. Doesn't mean there wasn't any ageism after that with the hiring manager or any of the other steps. But I think a lot of times, as a recruiter, we're trying to fill a position so quickly that we do take some of those quick moves and say yes or no before actually picking up the phone or shooting an email and just confirming that this is what the person's looking for, so that we are being open to multiple types of candidates.
Yep. And I get that. I understand that. It's no different than any other business that you're doing, right? You got to make decisions. If you've got a couple of candidates that are pretty even, across the board, and that me at my age probably wants more money, then you got to let go of me. I get it.
But again, it's assumption, right? They're assuming that you want more money. Right. So I feel like this whole conversation has been about assumptions.
Oh, very much so. Yes.
We as people make assumptions about others at all times, if it's by age, if it's by sex, areas of the country. I mean, I think we all have these stereotypes in our head that we go with. And I think we're all to blame for this. We've all done it, in my opinion. So tell me, what are some things that you think that could help a recruiter maybe get past these assumptions, get past these stereotypes, or things that they should be considering when they are looking at a resume or looking at a person who has this longevity of experience?
Yeah, I think, there's so much out there. Unfortunately, where we are now from a diversity inclusion perspective, how we got there is not good. Where we are now, and I've been part of diversity inclusion efforts for many, many years, it's good we're going there. So I believe there's a more opportunity than there ever has been before. And again, that's not just sex and race, creed, it's diversity of thought. It's, trying to help. And I always would tell my talent acquisition folks, help the hiring manager, make sure they're not hiring people just like themselves or like everybody else on the team. Look for that diversity, and diversity includes age. It includes the diversity of thought. That one I like an awful lot. So and there's so much bias training out there. So I would say take advantage of all of that, because there's, as you said, there's so many things we all have biases about that we have no clue, right? So I would suggest recruiters get out there, take as much of that training as possible. They've got to get the buy-in from their leadership. And if they don't, well, then they got to work underneath and that's up to them as well. Ask the right questions, be open, be committed to it. Make sure that you're listening. It's the same things you should be doing anyway, but depending on, how busy you are, that's hard to take the time to do it. And that's where I think the commitment is really important. I don't think there are, little checklists you can, check for this, check for this. No, it's gotta be in your head. You've got to be committed to it and want to look at hiring in a different way for all the right reasons.
I think those are excellent tips. And there is no checklist for anything in recruiting.
No,
There's not. Now, I think we talked a little bit about this, that again, we make assumptions of what people want as far as, attracting and retaining all the various generations. But are there any, ways that you would say companies should be looking at to attract and retain maybe the older generations, while also trying to attract and retain the younger generations? Are there any tools or tips on attraction?
I think it's understanding those individuals. You don't target the age or the demographic or the age or the generation. Target the individual behaviors, values, and attitudes that you're looking for, and it'll all come together. And they may be 50 and they may be 20, and there may be a 40-year-old in between. So once you can identify those, then just get all that bias out of your head. It's, you've gone after those individuals you want, and then they'll all work together well, right? There won't be some funkiness going on that sometimes occurs. And I'll tell you, there are people of my generation that don't keep themselves relevant. I get that say, I don't know anything about computers and I'm not going to, I know with COVID and a lot of senior leadership of a lot of major companies had to learn how to do this, right? Well, good for you. But in my mind, you should have known before, but that's different. So everybody, but not everybody keeps themselves relevant. It just the older generation gets beat up about it the most. But if you attract those individual behaviors, attitudes, and values, then it's easy to build a team. Right? And they're going to learn from each other. Having mentors, whether it's you've got a mentor that's a 20-year-old, a millennial for a 60-year-old, that's a really good thing, and vice versa, right? But it's going after the individual, not about the segment. And that changes everything.
Yes, it's creating what I would call a candidate persona in the way that you're looking at values, experience, knowledge, things that they can bring to the table. And that could be so many different people,
Right.
but you're looking for key skills, key values that you know are going to help them excel in this role.
Yes.
And that has nothing to do with age.
Nothing. And that helps, you know, a 22-year-old that gets beat up because, and for some of the right reasons, right? Because, well, they don't really care about their job and they're going to be there 1 year and go to, no, they're going to get more respect as well.
Yeah.
So everybody wins.
I feel like I just need to title this Assumptions.
Yes,
Stop making an ass out of you and me.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yes. That's what you title it. You just say, stop taking, don't even say assumptions. That's even better.
Yeah. It's amazing because it is. It's all this, oh, everyone's like this, everyone's like that. We have commonalities around what has happened in our lives, right? There's specific key wars or this pandemic, there are things that are going to absolutely connect us and we have a shared experience, but how we use that experience could be completely different. It's like I saw on Facebook, it's like we're all in the same storm, but we're all in different boats.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yes, very much so.
So if we don't understand that and we can't accept that everyone's experience is different in the same situation, we're never going to be able to treat everyone in the way that we should.
No, and we're not going to learn from each other.
Exactly. Yeah.
I can't learn from somebody that knows exactly my same experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Andrea, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for coming and joining us. I'm going to guess people are going to want to connect with you after this. So what are the best ways to be able to connect with you? So if anyone wants to be able to continue the conversation or just network with you.
The best way would be LinkedIn, my LinkedIn profile. So,
all right. Yeah. I will put that in the notes so that everyone can connect with you. But thank you again so much for joining me in this show of assumptions. Us, you and me, not good.
Okay, thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for watching this episode. Like what you saw, make sure you follow Talent Acquisition Evolution on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter. Happy recruiting.